What's going on, guys? This is Rob, and if you're enjoying the content here on my channel, then make sure you hit the like button and make sure you hit subscribe so you can help decide what direction the content on my channel goes in the foreseeable future. Okay, so in a video that's actually going to be coming out, because I've already recorded it, but in the video, Hal Jordan Wanted as part of Geoff Johns' Green Lantern, we are going to make reference to the idea of Kyle Rayner's, really his source of power, being what's called the Starheart. And the more I thought about it, because in that video, I basically said, hey, look, we'll do that as a totally separate explanation. We'll get into Alan Scott or something like that, you know, and kind of make sense of all that. The more I thought about it, the more I felt like that's something that should be done before the Hal Jordan Wanted video comes out. And so we're going to release this one first. So technically speaking, when that video comes out, we're going to reference a video that we've already done while saying I will make that video at some point along the line. So what I might do is I might go ahead and just like switch them around in the playlist so that it's all sorted out and that it all makes sense. But the fact remains here, really the Starheart's kind of an interesting concept in the realm of DC Comics. And the reason why is because it's really just kind of a rework of the traditional Alan Scott Green Lantern origin. Now, Alan Scott's a character that confuses a lot of non-comic book readers when it comes to Green Lantern. In this instance, we're really kind of talking about an updated origin that basically reflected back to an updated origin, which is really kind of weird. But to make this easy to understand, back in the 1940s, really 1940 itself, with All-American Comics number 16, when Alan Scott first appeared, there were no other Green Lanterns. It was just him. He was just one of the many heroes that popped up as a result of the success of Superman. And what DC did is they basically just said he got his powers from just a mystical flame that comes out of a lantern. And that's it. I mean, that's all there was to it. Now, he would use his powers really for pretty basic stuff. I mean, he would usually fight with his bare hands. So his powers would be used to like move objects, put out fires or something like that. And the only weakness he had was wood. Wood could penetrate the little shield that he made around himself, and his ring couldn't affect anything made of wood. And so because of that, you know, he was pretty par for the course in terms of your basic superhero design that we saw back in the, you know, the late 1930s, going into the 1940s and really the early 1950s. Now, all of this changed with the introduction of Hal Jordan. And the reason why is because of the fact that by the 1950s, comic books were moving away from superheroes and delving into science fiction. And what's more science fiction-y than super advanced technology and weird looking aliens? And so because of that, what DC did is they said, okay, the Green Lantern as you knew him from as Alan Scott is no longer part of the equation. He's gone, he's vanished, he's never to be seen or heard from again. Instead, you get Hal Jordan. And Hal Jordan does not get his Green Lantern powers from like a mystical green flame. Instead, he got his Green Lantern powers from a ring that was fashioned by the Guardians of the Universe. And the Guardians of the Universe made this ring so that Hal Jordan, alongside a multitude of other Green Lanterns, could all basically be the police force of the DC Universe. And that was pretty basic. I mean, we got to see Hal Jordan conjure like hard light constructs. And Alan Scott had done that too, to a degree. Back in his early comics, he had conjured objects, and that's really where the Hal Jordan concept came from, conjuring hard light constructs, giant pliers and, you know, boxing gloves and fists and all different kinds of things, you know, baseball bats and so on. But the idea was he was part of an interstellar police force. It was more science than it was mysticism. Now, the way that DC reconciled these two things when they brought Alan Scott back is they said, well, Alan Scott is the Green Lantern from a place called Earth 2. And so in that different universe, there were no Guardians of the Universe. There were no mystical beings or no Guardians in any form or fashion. It was just mysticism that gave him the powers that he has. And so they could basically have two Green Lanterns from two different universes. And it worked out. It was perfectly acceptable. Fans understood exactly what was going on. The problem with this came when DC launched Crisis on Infinite Earths. And the reason why was because of the fact that Crisis on Infinite Earths was designed to eliminate the multiverse. I mean, we have that video here on my channel. It was designed to get rid of the multiverse in its entirety. And instead, what it was designed to do was create a singular universe called New Earth. Now, for most people in DC's comics, that worked. In most of the DC landscape, that worked perfectly fine. You had Batman who got a new origin, Superman got a new origin, all the old members of the super family were wiped away. That was pretty much it. But Hal Jordan and Alan Scott were still relatively popular. I mean, I wouldn't say they were going, you know, hand in hand in terms of which one was more popular than the other, but there was a desire to see Alan Scott come back, and his comics were selling. And so DC couldn't simply just throw them away. And so what they did is they had to sit down and they said, okay, look, if Hal Jordan is the most popular of the Green Lanterns, then that means that we have to make Alan Scott's powers fall in line with Hal Jordan. We have to basically make them similar without taking away from everything that made Alan Scott identifiable. And so what they did is they kept the idea of mysticism, but they introduced something called the Starheart. Now, this is just a quick little one-page explanation. It's not super complex. It's pretty basic. But what we end up finding out here is that before the Guardians had made the Green Lantern Corps, what they had done is they had basically gone through and they had essentially, tried to make the universe ordered and structured, but one of the goals was to get rid of mystical energy. Now, the weird thing about this is DC basically says the Guardians got rid of magic, which we know doesn't make any sense because there's characters like Zatanna and all different manner of magical, heroes and villains in the realm of DC. So how this quite fits into that, I don't know, and we're not really given an answer to that. All we're really told is that the Guardians had basically grabbed all the magical energy in the universe, combined it into a single ball, and locked it in the heart of a star. And so that's where the phrase Starheart comes from. Now, the issue with this is that this star, because it was basically imbued with magical energy, became sentient. And when it became sentient, it realized that despite the Guardians' best efforts, the Green Lanterns might fail. Any number of villains could rise that could overthrow the Green Lanterns, could kill them all, as we saw Hal Jordan do during Emerald Twilight. And so what ended up happening is the Starheart basically cast off a piece of itself and then sent it roaming around the universe looking for someone to basically imbue its power, somebody worthy of being a host for the Starheart. And so what ended up happening here is this energy landed in China, which is where Alan Scott picks up. And so what it basically does is it brings the origin of Alan Scott closer in line with the Green Lantern mythos without basically taking away from what made the Green Lantern the way it was. And so this is the reason why, when we go through Geoff Johns' initial Green Lantern run, he'll actually change a lot of this stuff so that Alan Scott isn't imbued with the Starheart and has mystical energy. Instead, eventually Alan Scott will be able to form hard-like constructs and he'll be a traditional Green Lantern. Now, in terms of how this rolls over into Kyle Rayner, Alan Scott basically had a daughter named Jade, and Jade inherited, his ability, inherited the Starheart, that kind of thing, and that was a source of power for her. And so what ended up happening is that with Jade and Kyle Rayner eventually coming together, eventually Jade was killed. But in her final moments, Jade basically took all the power of the Starheart and put it inside Kyle Rayner. And so in essence, Kyle Rayner basically has all the traditional abilities of a Green Lantern, like Hal Jordan. He's got the Green Lantern ring, he can create hard-like constructs, he can fly, he can do all kinds of stuff. But he also has the Starheart energy, basically all the energy that was locked away, or all the magic that was locked away by the Guardians of the Universe when they made the Green Lantern Corps. So he's basically imbued with magical energy and Green Lantern powers. That's why he's so uber powerful. He just has a ton of magical energy and Green Lantern stuff. That's really all it is. Hopefully that makes sense to you guys. I don't quite know how to explain it any better than that, simply because of the fact that by the time that story was written, or at the time the story was written, DC hadn't really explained it too much. Alan Scott had gone through like a litany of origin retellings. I mean, there were origin stories that were just wild. There was I think there was an origin story post Infinite Crisis. There's an origin story before Infinite Crisis. There was an origin story after 0 Hour Crisis in Time. I mean, they just kept retelling his origin over and over and over again. But I believe, and I may be wrong about this, if I am, feel free to correct me, although I probably don't have to tell you, but as far as I'm aware, the most recent origin of Alan Scott basically said, go read Secret Origins, Volume 2, issue number 18 from 1987. That's pretty much what it was. I mean, that's really just what the origin seemed to amount to. It was basically just retelling this origin story as it had been given to us in terms of the Starheart energy and that kind of a thing. But anyway, yeah, so I figured I'd go ahead and bring this to you guys. Basically, the Starheart is just all the magical energy in the DC universe that's being wielded by Kyle Rayner in conjunction with a Green Lantern ring. That's basically what it is. But and I could have said that in that video, but I kind of felt like giving you guys some context in terms of why it's that way and basically explaining it would have gone a lot easier, would have gone a lot better towards helping you guys understand everything that's going on with regards to what it is that Geoff Johns grabbing and what he's rolling in and all that kind of good stuff. But anyway, if you guys are new here to Comics Explained, make sure you hit the sub button to become part of the Rob Corps. If you guys enjoyed this video, make sure you drop a like, and I will catch you all later. Peace.